Okay, this is 8-4, completing the square. Solve by completing the square. Make sure that you've been in class or watched the video completing the square. Basically, if we build these with the algebra tiles, like I did with you guys in class, the x squared is a big square tile. The 6x, we lined them up, they're skinny. Here, and I said build a square. So you divided those in half, put them over here. The only other thing that you could do to finish off that square, I gave you free little pieces. And with the free pieces, you said, oh, we need to put in 9 little blocks and that'll complete the square. Now mathematically, what we figured out we did is we divided the 6 by 2, because it went on 2 sides. And then we got 3, and we squared it. That's how we built that square. Okay? So we're going to practice that a little bit. You don't need to draw the blocks every time. So here, if you picture it in your mind's eye, you'd be dividing 12 by 2. You'd get 6, square the 6, and C equals 36. Okay? This one, you take the negative 26, we divide by 2, we get negative 13. Negative 13 squared is 169. So C equals 169. Okay? That is completing the square. On this one, now we want to solve for 0. One thing that we probably should do is go backwards just a little bit to these last 3 boards as we complete these squares, show you how we put it in factored form. So now here we have the 3 squared, and part of the reason I write this is so that I remember what I squared and I take it right into the completed square. This is an x plus 3 times an x plus 3, another way to look at it. Okay? I just look right here and I say my next step is to show this trinomial squared, bring down my x, bring down my sign right there, and bring down my root of the square there. This, when you foil or box it, would end up being that. Okay? Let's go to that next one. So here, again, I bring the whole thing down, put the square on it. I bring down my square root of that would be x. My sign from that would be plus. And my root of the c value would be 6. There's my final answer. That's the square. When I FOIL or box that, I would get x squared plus 12x plus 36. Next one, I would break it down again, square root of this, sine of this, and there's my 13, and I square it. Go ahead, FOIL or box it, you'll get this value up here. So now we're to this one. On this one, we're wanting to solve it. 11 is not the perfect square. So all we need to do is put a blank here for our perfect square. Go ahead and put the 11 out here. And then I say, go ahead where you've added that, subtract that as well so that you're not changing the value of the equation. Okay, now we come back to just this perfect square part right here. Take half of 10. That's 5 squared would be 25, and now we subtract 25 to keep it equal. Otherwise you've changed your equality. Okay? Now we can write this as a perfect square. X plus 5 squared can represent that. Negative 11 and negative 25 is negative 36. equals 0. Now we go ahead and we solve. Circle our x. We can't go inside the parentheses because going up PIMDAS, the parentheses is clear at the top. We can add the 36 because it's on the outside the parentheses. So add 36 to each side. We get x plus 5 squared, because this all wipes out, equals 36. Now we still can't get inside the parentheses until we get rid of the square. There's no multiply or divide out here. So we go to the exponent. To get rid of the exponent, we do a square root. That becomes plus or minus. This will wipe that out. We get x plus 5 equals plus or minus 6. At this point, you need to write it with both of those. X plus 5 equals positive 6. X plus 5 equals negative 6. Now you subtract 5 from each side. We get x equals 1. Subtract 5 from both sides. X equals negative 11. So when you plug either of those values in for x, you'll get 0. An easier one. This one's all done for you almost right now. All we need to do is go up our PIMDAS. There's nothing on the outside of the parentheses. So all we need to do is do the square root. Now make sure that you do a plus or minus. So we have, that cancels. So we would have x plus 5 equals, this is the same problem as before. I'm going to change it. Let's go to 8. That's a good one for you. Because you know that 8, square root of 8, equals square root of 4 times square root of 2, and square root of 4 is a perfect square, so it's 2. So now we go plus or minus 2 square root 2. Now we subtract 5 from each side. X equals, we can't subtract that because you would have to multiply before you subtracted. That's 2 times radical 2. So it becomes a negative 5 plus or minus 2 radical 2. Be okay with that kind of answer. Okay. One more here, solving by completing the square. So we're going to go x squared minus, actually if you look at it, you can't solve by factoring. If you could, I'd be fine with you solving by factoring. Plus blank minus 1 minus blank equals 0. Take half of this 2x. We get a negative 1 squared is 1. Okay? Now we know that this part comes down into the perfect square. X minus 1 squared. Take the root, take the sign, take the root of that. Negative 1 and negative 1 is negative 2 equals 0. Now, we need to go ahead and solve it. Add 2 to each side, so we have x minus 1 squared equals positive 2. Find the square root. Find the square root. X minus 1 equals positive or negative square root 2. That one can't come out. You add 1 to each side, and your answer will be 1 plus or minus square root 2. Whole reason we had to add 1 to each side was there was a negative 1 here. I was just out of boardroom. Okay, last problem. We want to complete the square here. So we take negative 8, divide by 2, square it. Negative 8 divided by 2 is 4. 4 squared is 16. We can see this is a perfect square, so we go straight to our answer. We don't need to adjust the problem at all. Square it. Square root of 16 is 4. Square root of x is x. Put the negative in here. Equals 0. Now to solve, we take the square root on each side. That'll wipe that out. We need to have that plus or minus, but the square root of 0 is just 0. So we don't need a plus or minus. X minus 4 equals 0. Add 4 to each side, x equals 4. So 4 is the only thing that will work in that problem. Come to class with your questions. We'll catch you there.